All right, let's just dive right into this. Welcome to today's Explainer, where we're going to unpack a blueprint that does something, well, frankly, incredible. We're looking at how to take what could easily be a super dry, standard HR training proposal and turn it into literal luxury hospitality magic. Today, we're looking at the Reconnect and Renew training ecosystem designed for Six Senses Quexigal. I mean, if you've ever wondered how top-tier luxury brands get their staff to seemingly read your mind, this is exactly how they do it. The whole thesis for this strategy really boils down to one powerful idea. We don't train tasks, we cultivate reconnection. You see, the designers behind this program recognize that in the modern luxury market, human capital is your absolute most unbeatable, intangible asset. You can't just hand a new hire a dusty manual and expect them to create magic, right? You have to cultivate an environment where the employees, or hosts as they call them, deeply, genuinely internalize the brand's DNA. And guys, the stakes here are incredibly high. Six Senses Quexigal isn't just some standard hotel building off a highway. It is literally a 16th century royal village that has been transformed into a wellness-led, sustainable luxury retreat. Just think about the operational reality of that for a second. You are working in an enchanting, living ecosystem. Standard corporate training, sitting in a windowless conference room watching a boring PowerPoint, that's simply not going to work here. Actually, it would completely disconnect the staff from the very environment they're supposed to be bringing to life. So let's move into part one, diagnosing the training gaps. Because before you can create any kind of magic, you absolutely have to understand the reality on the ground. And a massive hurdle here, the sheer diversity of the workforce. A Person analysis revealed this really unique mix of local Spanish staff, international hospitality veterans, and young hotel school trainees. So you're dealing with wildly varying levels of digital literacy and English fluency across the board. Plus, at the organizational level, the brand demands hosts who fully embody wellness and sustainability. But the task analysis, it shows they simultaneously need to execute really complex tasks like waste reduction, personal wellness consultations, and operating advanced property management systems. And they have to do all of this while navigating the physical constraints of a 16th century palace. It's a lot. When you smash all those factors together, some very specific operational gaps quickly emerge. For example, the source notes a struggle with consistently delivering out-of-the-ordinary experiences, meaning staff might find it hard to consistently pull off things like surprise sunset toasts or seamlessly handle quirky guest requests, like, say, someone demanding organic almond milk at 3 in the morning and doing it with the exact right mix of humor and grace. They also found there was no formal program linking their deep wellness philosophy to daily service, and managerial coaching skills were, well, a bit underdeveloped. So these are the colorful, real-world hurdles this training ecosystem absolutely has to solve. All right, part two, the 5 core academies. To bridge that massive operational gap between high-level brand values and day-to-day operations, they developed these 5 core academies. You've got Welcome to Quexigal for thorough onboarding, Wellness DNA for health and sleep consultations, Sustainability in Action covering things like waste sorting and energy monitoring, Out of the Ordinary for storytelling and surprise rituals, and finally, Talent Development for empowering supervisors. It's this incredibly modular, agile structure designed to iterate and adapt quarterly, mapping training directly to their core brand pillars.
But the crucial point is what these academies are actually trying to achieve, which is emotional hospitality. This is that intuitive ability to connect with guests and anticipate their completely unspoken needs. It's tacit knowledge. Any competitor with enough money can go out and copy the 16th century buildings or buy the exact same luxury linens, but there is absolutely no way they can copy the specific human intuition. This is the ultimate competitive moat.
And building that moat, it takes serious investment. 44. That is the number of hours of immersive training new hires undergo just to fully internalize this brand's DNA across those first 4 academies. That is a massive, absolutely crucial commitment of time and resources before a host is ever fully unleashed onto the property. Moving on to part 3. Learning beyond the classroom. Because honestly, sitting in a classroom for 44 hours isn't going to create emotional hospitality. Instead, we see this fascinating juxtaposition. You have this ancient, heritage-rich 16th century palace, but it's utilizing a hyper-modern, agile learning design. They are completely abandoning those old, rigid, event-based classroom lectures. Instead, the Quexigal ecosystem is continuous, it's gamified, and heavily reliant on on-the-job application. They literally treat training as a living ecosystem that adapts, rather than some heavy binder you read once and toss onto a dusty shelf. And this is where the delivery gets really fun. To keep that continuous learning going, they use 15-minute WhatsApp wellness bites for daily reinforcement. They deploy articulate Rise e-modules for sustainability basics. They issue digital badges like Zero Waste Hero or Wellness Whisperer to gamify the whole shebang, and they even host monthly legacy lunches, where veteran hosts actively pass down unwritten rules and tacit knowledge to newer team members. It's spaced repetition and social learning happening in real time right out there in the gardens and great halls of the property.
Which brings us to part 4, measuring the business impact.
Look, creating an enchanting culture is wonderful, but as any HR or business leader knows, you gotta prove the return on investment. So they rely on the textbook Kirkpatrick evaluation model to do exactly that. They track everything from level 1, reaction, using post-session smile sheets with a target score of 4.5 out of 5. Then level 2, learning, through knowledge quizzes. Next up is level 3, behavior, measured by mystery guests secretly testing the staff. And finally, level 4, results. This measures actual business impact, like year-over-year increases in guest satisfaction, wellness upsells, and reductions in energy waste. It proves that intangible concepts like wellness and intuition can actually be rigorously tracked. Who knew? Of course, all of this requires concrete financial backing. The proposal outlines a highly targeted €35,000 annual budget. But what's really revealing is the split. €15,000 goes toward external certifications to formally validate their expertise, while the larger €20,000 chunk is dedicated entirely to technology and software. That's what funds the learning management systems and mobile authoring tools that make those continuous WhatsApp bites and e-modules a reality.
And they tie all of this tech and budgeting into a really slick, proactive training dashboard. For example, they utilize a weekly 5-question mobile pulse survey, asking staff things like, hey, did you use a sustainability tip today? If less than 70% say yes, boom, a micro-learning video is automatically pushed to that specific department. This dashboard seamlessly tracks orientation completion, badge earning, and even guest comment mentions of wellness, explicitly linking the entire training ecosystem to their ultimate goal, keeping employee turnover below 20%. Which brings us to a final really provocative thought. When you look at how Six Senses Quexigal takes varying skill levels, a highly complex 16th century environment, and extremely high luxury demands, and solves it all by treating learning as a continuous, gamified, and measurable culture, well, it kind of forces a mirror up to the rest of us, doesn't it? Look at your own organizational culture through this lens. Ask yourself, are you just training tasks, or are you cultivating an ecosystem? Thanks for joining me for this explainer. I really hope it left you with some powerful new ideas to take back to your own teams.
Picture this. You're standing right in the middle of a 16th century royal village in Spain.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, it's an estate called Quexigal. And you look around, and you're just surrounded by these ancient, incredibly heavy stone walls.
Right. The kind of place where you can practically feel the history.
Exactly. You can almost feel the centuries of history radiating off the cobblestones under your feet. There are sweeping tapestries, grand fireplaces, and these sprawling gardens that look like they were ripped straight out of a Renaissance painting.
Sounds incredible.
It is. Standing there, it feels completely suspended in time. It's like a preserved artifact of a bygone royal era. But then, you look a little closer.
Right, and the illusion starts to fracture. You notice the details that simply do not fit the 16th century narrative.
Yes. You notice that the person walking purposefully through the courtyard isn't some royal courtier. It's a guest heading to a cutting-edge biohacking treatment.
Which is such a wild contrast.
It totally is.
Yeah.
And you look at those sprawling gardens and realize they aren't just decorative. They are meticulously engineered organic farms, supplying a zero-waste kitchen.
Because it's not a museum.
No, not at all. This ancient, stone-walled historical fortress is actually a highly sophisticated, modern, wellness-led luxury retreat operated by the Six Senses brand.
It's a staggering physical juxtaposition, really. I mean, you have the ultimate representation of the past, a literal royal palace serving as the vessel for some of the most forward-thinking, scientifically advanced concepts in modern hospitality.
And wellness, yeah. And that tension between the ancient setting and the modern operation is exactly what we're exploring today.
We have a massive stack of source material for this one.
We really do. But the crown jewel is this highly detailed real-world learning and development proposal. It's titled Reconnect and Renew, a holistic training ecosystem for Six Senses.
It's a fascinating read.
It is. And our mission for this deep dive is simple. Whether you manage a massive corporate team, run a small local business, or just want to understand the deep psychology behind peak human performance, we are going to unpack exactly how a world-class luxury brand builds a continuous learning culture.
Because operating a property like that requires a workforce operating on a completely different psychological level.
Right.
I mean, this proposal isn't about teaching someone where the clean towels are kept. It's a blueprint for transforming human capital into an intangible asset.
Okay, let's unpack this term before we go any further. Intangible asset. It sounds like, heavy corporate jargon.
It does sound like jargon, yeah.
But the way this document uses it is actually profound.
It's the bedrock of their entire strategy. If you look at the ultra-luxury market, your competitors have deep pockets. They can buy the exact same high-end organic linens you use.
Sure, they can just write a check.
Exactly. They can install the exact same infrared saunas. They can even hire the same starchitects to build a stunning property right down the road. Those are tangible assets.
Easily replicated.
Right, easily replicated with enough money. But what a competitor cannot easily replicate is a workforce that intuitively anticipates a guest's emotional needs before the guest even vocalizes them.
Oh, that's a great point.
You can't just buy a culture that seamlessly integrates complex sustainability practices into every single passing interaction. That collective intuition, that embedded culture, is the intangible asset.
And that's what sets them apart.
Exactly. Knowledge is most valuable when it is applied to the bigger picture. What we're looking at today is basically a masterclass in taking highly rigorous academic training frameworks and blending them into the deeply emotional world of luxury hospitality.
Yeah, I'm looking at some of these frameworks mentioned in the intro of the document. Things like the ADDI model and Kirkpatrick's evaluation levels.
Oh yeah, we'll get into those.
We'll definitely get into the weeds on those. But let's start with the very first problem they tackle. Because before you can build this incredible intangible asset, you have to actually know what you're trying to achieve.
You can't just throw people in a classroom.
Right, and hope magic happens. You have to diagnose the baseline.
So in the instructional design world, particularly within the ADI model, which stands for Analysis, Design, Development, Implementation, and Evaluation, what you're talking about is the A.
The analysis phase.
Exactly. Or, as this proposal calls it, Step 1, the needs assessment.
And I appreciate that they don't just do some superficial survey. They break this needs assessment down into 3 distinct layers: organizational analysis, person analysis, and task analysis.
Let's start with the big picture.
Yeah, let's look at the organizational level first. What does Six Senses Quexigal actually demand from its workforce?
It's a lot, actually.
It is. The document states they require their hosts, which is their term for employees, and I absolutely love that framing. They demand that these hosts embody 3 core pillars.
Sustainability, wellness, and out-of-the-ordinary experiences.
Yes. And I want to pause on those 3 pillars because that is a monumental operational demand.
It really is. They aren't just asking employees to be, polite, efficient, and clean.
Right. The basics.
They are demanding that staff be active practitioners of wellness, stewards of complex environmental sustainability, and spontaneous creators of magical moments.
Which is incredibly hard to do consistently.
And the organizational analysis frankly admits that right now, any training happening on these fronts is wildly fragmented.
Like a supervisor in the kitchen might teach recycling, while a manager at the front desk might mention how to greet a VIP.
Exactly, but there is no cohesive, unified thread binding it all together.
And the stakes are high, because the executives are demanding that every single hour of training must link directly back to hard business KPIs.
They want to see the numbers.
They want to see guest scores go up, repeat visits increase, and revenue from wellness programs spike.
But here is where the rubber meets the road. And this leads us into the second layer, the person analysis.
Right. Who are the actual human beings they're trying to mold into these perfect hosts? Because the reality of the hospitality workforce is not a monolith.
Oh, not at all. It is one of the most demographically fractured workforces on the planet. The person analysis in this document lays it out bare.
Yeah. Tell me about the breakdown.
Well, you have local Spanish staff, some of whom may have lived in the village surrounding the Quexigal estate their entire lives.
Wow.
Yeah, so they possess unparalleled, authentic local knowledge, but perhaps zero experience in international luxury standards.
Right. And working right alongside them, you have Gen Z trainees freshly graduated from elite hotel schools in Switzerland or the US.
Exactly. And then, anchoring the team, you have the boomer international hospitality veterans.
The people who have been opening five-star properties around the globe for 40 years.
Think about the friction inherent in that mix. You are dealing with wildly varying levels of digital literacy.
Ooh, for sure.
The Gen Z trainee can navigate a complex new operational software on an iPad in 5 seconds flat. But they might completely freeze or lack the emotional regulation required when an exhausted, jet-lagged VIP guest starts shouting at them in the lobby.
While the 40-year veteran won't even flinch at the shouting guest.
Not at all.
They can defuse that situation with their eyes closed. But if you ask them to log their sustainability metrics into a new digital training dashboard, they might find it incredibly frustrating.
Add to that the varying levels of English and Spanish fluency across the staff, and you have a massive, complex human puzzle.
Yeah, I'm looking at this person analysis, and I want to read a specific line because it's so rare to see this level of honesty in a corporate document.
Which line?
It says explicitly, quote, "Existing hosts may resist change if training is seen as extra work," unquote.
What's fascinating here is that that is the elephant in the room of the entire learning and development industry.
Totally.
So often, these corporate proposals exist in a utopian vacuum where the writer assumes every employee is just thrilled at the prospect of sitting in a seminar.
Like they have nothing better to do.
Right. But this document anticipates the hostility. It acknowledges that for a deeply overworked, constantly moving hospitality worker, being told, hey, we have a new mandatory training program for you, is often received as a punishment.
I mean, think about it. It's like when a company introduces a new software system and everyone groans. You know, that collective sigh that echoes through an office?
Oh, absolutely.
But let's take it out of the office.
Yeah.
Imagine you are a master chef. You've been chopping vegetables with impeccable precision for 2 decades.
Okay.
Suddenly, a corporate manager walks in with a clipboard and says, "We need you to sit in this room for 3 hours so we can teach you our new brand-aligned way to hold a knife."
The chef is going to be furious.
Right. The chef is going to look at you and say, "I already know how to do my job. I'm busy. Why are you making me do this?" How on earth do you convince a hospitality veteran who has been doing this for 20 years that they need to learn about, like, wellness metrics?
If you don't have an incredibly compelling answer to that why, your entire multi-thousand-euro training program is dead on arrival.
They'll just ignore it.
The staff will smile, sit through the presentation, and immediately revert to their old habits the second they leave the room.
Which brings us to the final diagnostic layer, the task analysis.
Yes, this is where the analyst observed what people were actually doing minute by minute on the floor and where the specific breakdowns were occurring.
And the gaps they found are glaring blind spots. For example, they noted there is absolutely no formal program linking the overarching Six Senses wellness philosophy to daily mundane service.
Right. The biohacking experts in the clinic understand wellness, sure.
But the person delivering a club sandwich to a room at midnight, they have no idea how their interaction impacts the guest's circadian rhythm or nervous system.
They also highlighted massive gaps in sustainability tracking.
Which is a huge deal for them.
Exactly. The brand positions itself as a beacon of environmental stewardship. But if the frontline staff isn't trained on how to track water usage or how to properly separate food waste, the brand promise becomes a hollow marketing slogan.
Or even just how to confidently explain the local sourcing of the menu to a curious guest.
That too.
I also noticed they flagged the out-of-the-ordinary experiences as a major gap, the quirky, spontaneous moments.
What did they find there?
They found that a few naturally charismatic staff members were doing it, but most weren't, because there was no system for it. It was just random.
But out of all the gaps listed in this task analysis, the one that seems the most dangerous is the lack of managerial coaching skills.
Oh, man. Supervisors simply do not know how to develop the talent beneath them.
And that is the death knell for organizational change. You can train a frontline worker perfectly, but if their direct supervisor doesn't know how to reinforce that behavior, the training evaporates.
Poof, it's gone.
Furthermore, the document points out that the current new hire orientation is purely functional. Here's your locker, here's the time clock, here's the fire exit.
Just the logistics.
All right. It does absolutely nothing to immerse a new employee in the heritage of that 16th century palace or the philosophical pillars of the brand.
So the needs assessment is complete. The diagnosis is in. We have a fragmented operational system, a highly diverse and potentially very resistant workforce, and severe gaps in how wellness, sustainability, and spontaneity are executed on the ground.
It's a lot to tackle.
I'm looking at this and thinking, this is a powder keg. If you just shove these people into a windowless conference room and start lecturing them, they will tune out completely.
Which is exactly why this proposal pivots heavily into steps 2 and 3 of the design process: readiness and environment.
Okay, let's dig into that.
Before anyone even touches the technical skills or the brand philosophy, you have to build an architecture of learning that psychologically prepares them to receive the information.
Let's look at how they tackle that readiness aspect. Their first move is fascinating. Before a new hire is allowed to touch any operational training, they have to complete a values alignment e-module.
Setting the stage.
Yeah. Why start there? Why not start with how to use the point of sale system so they can actually start working?
Because of the psychology of motivation. You have to establish the why before you ever introduce the what or the how.
Right.
If you want an exhausted dishwasher to care about meticulously sorting organic food waste at 1 a.m., they first have to internalize why the company cares about the local ecosystem.
Makes sense.
This values alignment module sets the philosophical bedrock. It attempts to align the individual's personal ethics with the corporation's mission.
But let's be real. You can't just rely on good vibes and corporate philosophy to keep people motivated.
No, definitely not.
People have bills to pay. They want to advance. And this proposal actually structures the external motivation brilliantly. They link the completion of these training modules directly to career progression through a digital badging system.
Now, the badging system is clever.
Right. If you complete the specific wellness modules, you don't just get a certificate, you earn a wellness ambassador badge. And that badge makes you eligible for monthly recognition awards and fast-tracks you for promotions.
We are looking at the application of behavioral economics here. You are taking training out of the realm of compliance, I have to do this or I get fired, and moving it into the realm of achievement. I want to do this to elevate my status and visibility within my tribe.
And importantly, while they're building this motivation, they also address the absolute foundational skills gaps immediately. The readiness phase includes basic Spanish and English microcourses for departments like housekeeping and food and beverage.
Which is essential. You cannot teach someone the nuances of emotional hospitality if there is a fundamental language barrier preventing them from understanding the baseline material.
Exactly. Okay, so you get everyone aligned on the values, you give them the basic language tools to communicate, and you give them a selfish reason to care through the badging system. The mind is prepped.
Readiness achieved.
Now we look at the learning environment. And this is where operating inside a 16th century royal estate becomes a massive advantage. They are explicitly forbidding the use of sterile, fluorescent-lit back-office rooms for this training.
Because the physical environment heavily dictates cognitive absorption. This proposal mandates that the real-world simulated practice must happen in the palace's Great Hall, in the active spa, and out in the historic gardens.
I read that. You immediately thought of athletes. It's like athletes practicing on the actual field they'll play on, rather than just watching tape in a locker room.
That's a perfect analogy.
Or take it a step further, it's like training a pilot. You don't just give a pilot a manual and say, memorize this. You put them in a multi-million-dollar flight simulator so they can feel the vibrations of the yoke and see the exact layout of the dashboard.
Right.
So when you train a hospitality worker on how to handle a tense guest interaction in the actual Great Hall, with the specific acoustics of the echoing stone walls, the precise natural lighting coming through the ancient windows, the spatial distance between the front desk and the door, how does that change what happens in their brain?
It fundamentally alters the cognitive encoding of the memory. In psychology, this is known as context-dependent memory or state-dependent learning.
State-dependent learning.
Right. When your brain encodes a new piece of information, it doesn't just store the fact. It stores the environmental cues surrounding that fact. The smells, the lighting, the temperature.
So the room matters.
Huge. If you learn how to de-escalate an angry guest in a quiet, carpeted conference room, your brain links that skill to a quiet, carpeted room. When you are suddenly on the actual floor and it's loud and the stone floors are echoing, your brain struggles to retrieve the information because the environmental cues are missing.
Wow.
By conducting the role-playing in the Great Hall itself, Quexigal is locking in that tacit knowledge physically. The environment becomes the trigger for the behavior.
And they don't just let people act out scenes and clap for each other. I noticed they use standardized rubrics during these physical simulations. They have a tool called the Emotional Hospitality Checklist.
That checklist is vital.
So a manager isn't just watching a role play and saying, hey, good job, you were really friendly. They have a clipboard, and they are checking off highly specific criteria. Did you maintain eye contact? Did you anticipate an unstated need? Did you match the guest's pacing?
Objective measurement is crucial for behavioral change. Without the rubric, feedback is subjective and often perceived as personal criticism. With the checklist, the feedback becomes purely structural.
Now, I want to talk about my absolute favorite mechanical element of this learning architecture, the scheduling.
Oh, yeah.
How they actually deliver the training over time, because they explicitly reject the traditional corporate method of pulling 50 people off the floor for a massive, exhausting 8-hour seminar.
Thank goodness.
Right. Instead, they rely on something called spaced repetition, pushing 15-minute daily wellness bites directly to the staff's mobile apps.
Yes.
I know spaced repetition is a big buzzword in learning circles, but I want to understand the neuroscience here. Why is a 15-minute daily video better than a comprehensive 2-day retreat?
To understand why it's better, we have to look at a concept discovered in the late 19th century by a psychologist named Hermann Ebbinghaus. It's called the forgetting curve.
The forgetting curve.
The human brain is an incredibly efficient machine, and part of its efficiency is pruning information it deems irrelevant to your immediate survival.
So it deletes things.
Exactly. If you sit someone in an 8-hour seminar and dump 50 new concepts on them, they will understand it in the moment. But by Tuesday morning, their brain has already discarded about 50% of that information.
That fast.
By Friday, nearly 90% of it is gone. The brain basically says, I haven't needed to use this data about sustainability metrics in the last 48 hours, so I'm deleting it to save energy.
It's essentially cognitive decluttering.
Exactly. Spaced repetition hacks that pruning process. If you introduce a concept on Monday and then force the employee to recall it via a quick quiz on the app on Tuesday, and then show them a 2-minute video expanding on it on Thursday, you are actively interrupting the forgetting curve.
You're forcing it to stick.
Every time you force the brain to retrieve that memory, the neural pathway gets thicker and more permanent. You are tricking the brain into believing this information is vital for long-term survival.
That makes so much sense.
A 15-minute daily bite integrates seamlessly into the workflow and is neurologically vastly superior to a multi-day workshop for actual long-term retention.
It's like trying to fill a bucket that has a hole in it. A massive fire hose, the 8-hour seminar, just splashes everywhere and mostly drains out. But a slow, steady drip of 15 minutes a day eventually fills the bucket and keeps it full.
Beautiful way to visualize it.
Okay, so the architecture is built. We have values alignment, physical context-dependent simulations, and spaced repetition software ready to go. The soil is tilled. But what seeds are they actually planting? Let's dive deep into the actual curriculum this proposal maps out.
The proposal outlines a highly modular agile structure comprising roughly 44 hours of training per new hire. That is a massive investment. 44 hours is more than an entire week of full-time dedicated training. And they break this down into 5 distinct pillars, which they refer to as academies.
Calling them academies gives it such weight. It doesn't sound like HR orientation. It sounds like you are being inducted into a university within the village. Let's walk through these 5.
Sure.
Academy 1 is titled, Welcome to Quexigal. They allocate 8 solid hours just for this baseline. It's delivered through on-site, instructor-led sessions mixed with some e-learning. The curriculum covers the brand values, the safety protocols, and deeply, the history of the royal village itself.
History is a big component here.
Yeah, and if I'm an analyst looking at the budget, I might ask, why are we paying a new night shift maintenance worker for 8 hours to learn about 16th century Spanish royalty?
Because context creates emotional investment. If a maintenance worker is just fixing a pipe in a basement, it's a job.
Just a wrench turning.
Right. But if they understand that the pipe runs beneath a courtyard where royal treaties were signed, and that preserving the structural integrity of this estate is a matter of historical stewardship, their relationship to the labor changes.
It elevates the work.
Exactly. Academy 1 grounds every single employee in the narrative of the space. You cannot be an ambassador for a property if you don't know its story.
That makes perfect sense. You are moving them from being a worker to being a custodian.
That leads us to Academy 2.
Yeah.
Wellness DNA.
Ah, yes.
This is a 12-hour module, and the target audience here is what caught my eye. It says all hosts, not just the spa staff, not just the yoga instructors, every single person on the payroll.
It's a bold move.
The content covers sleep science, nutrition, the physiology of movement. It physically trains them on how to lead a morning meditation or a forest bath. and it covers the basics of guest wellness consultation.
Right.
I have to stop here. Why is the person balancing the accounting ledgers in the back office, or the person pouring coffee at breakfast, spending 12 hours learning how to lead a forest bath? This is a radical and brilliant strategic choice. In most hotels, departments operate in strict silos. The spa knows wellness, the kitchen knows food.
Keep to your lane.
Exactly. But by mandating that every host completes the Wellness DNA Academy, Six Senses is creating a ubiquitous, unified culture. Think about the guest experience.
Okay.
If a guest asks the person pouring their coffee, I had terrible jet lag last night, the coffee server doesn't just say, "I'm sorry to hear that."
Right.
They understand the physiological importance of the sleep cycle. They might suggest a specific herbal tea available in the lobby designed to regulate the nervous system.
Oh, wow.
The frontline server speaks the exact same language as the high-end biohacking specialist in the clinic. The guest feels enveloped in wellness at every single touch point, not just when they are wearing a robe in the spa.
It turns every employee into a micro-consultant. Let's look at Academy 3. Sustainability in action.
This one is highly targeted.
Yeah, it's 6 hours, again for all hosts, but the delivery is highly customized by department using micro-learning videos and on-the-job checklists. So the food and beverage team focuses deeply on waste sorting, composting, and the circular economy of the kitchen.
Makes sense.
The engineering team ignores the compost and focuses entirely on energy monitoring, water tracking, and HVAC efficiency. The purchasing team focuses on the supply chain and local sourcing stories. And critically, they all learn how to educate the guest on these practices.
This customization solves one of the biggest failures in corporate sustainability training.
Which is what?
Usually, sustainability is treated as a lofty, abstract corporate goal. An executive stands up and says, "We want to reduce our carbon footprint by 20%, and the frontline workers nod and have absolutely no idea what that means for their Tuesday morning shift.
Right, like what am I supposed to do differently?
By tailoring the curriculum to the specific mundane daily tasks of the department, how the sous chef handles onion peels versus how the maintenance engineer calibrates the thermostat, it makes an abstract philosophy highly operational.
I also want to point out the extreme pragmatism of this module. A lot of times, environmental training gets bogged down in heavy political ideology. But looking at the metrics they tie this to, this document is entirely focused on the business reality.
Yes, from an organizational behavior standpoint, they are treating sustainability as a hard business constraint.
Yeah.
Waste is literal money thrown in the garbage. Excessive water use destroys the profit margin. And increasingly, ultra-luxury guests demand visible, sustainable practices. It drives revenue and brand loyalty.
So they aren't debating politics.
Not at all. They are training the staff to optimize these metrics purely because it makes the ecosystem financially viable and competitive.
Which brings us to the most intriguing part of the curriculum for me. Academy 4, Out of the Ordinary.
This one is unique.
Here's where it gets really interesting. This is an 8-hour module targeted at the highly visible roles, front desk, food and beverage activities, concierge.
Okay.
The curriculum focuses on storytelling. It teaches them how to take those palace legends from Academy 1 and weave them into interactions with the guests. It covers surprise and delight rituals, things like organizing an impromptu sunset toast or leaving a personalized hidden note in a guest room based on a conversation they overheard.
Nice.
And it specifically covers how to handle quirky, difficult requests with humor and grace. Okay, I need to push back on this.
Yeah, go for it.
I'm looking at this outline, and my instinct says this is impossible. Can you actually train someone to be spontaneous and quirky? Isn't storytelling an innate talent?
You'd think so.
Yeah, I mean, you either have that kind of charm or you don't. It feels like trying to write a textbook on how to be charismatic.
It is a very common and very valid objection. We have a tendency to romanticize spontaneity and hospitality. We view it as pure, unteachable magic. You hire a charismatic person and hope they do charismatic things.
Yeah.
But in a highly scaled, operationalized luxury environment, relying on random acts of inherent magic is a terrible, unpredictable business strategy. You cannot scale a personality. What this curriculum does is it systematizes the spontaneity.
Systematized spontaneity sounds like an oxymoron. How do you do that?
You don't train them to be inherently funny or charming. You provide them with a framework, a toolkit, and most importantly, authorization.
Authorization.
The proposal details the use of mobile app inspiration libraries. It's a searchable database of successful magical moments that other staff have executed. You give them a menu of local legends, then you practice the delivery in those role-play workshops in the Great Hall.
Like practicing a play.
Right. You analyze case studies of when a surprise ritual is appropriate, say, a couple celebrating an anniversary who seem outgoing, versus when a guest is clearly exhausted and just wants to be left completely alone in silence.
So it's reading the room.
You're training situational awareness. But the biggest barrier to spontaneity in the workplace isn't a lack of imagination, it's fear.
Fear of getting in trouble.
Employees are terrified of breaking protocol, looking foolish, or spending company money without authorization. Academy 4 explicitly gives them permission. It says, you have a budget, you have the tools, you are authorized to break the standard routine to create a memory.
That reframing is incredible. You aren't teaching them to be someone else. You are giving them the palette, the canvas, and the explicit permission to paint outside the lines.
Exactly. And there is another layer of strategic brilliance hidden in how these academies overlap. Let's talk about cross-training.
Yeah. The document mentions high-performance work systems, HPWS.
Yes. The core tenet of an HPWS is creating a highly flexible, multi-skilled workforce rather than rigid departmental silos.
Right.
Think back to Academy 2. Because a food and beverage host, a bartender, or a waiter has taken that 12-hour wellness DNA academy, they possess baseline wellness consultation skills.
Okay, so where are you going?
Let's say it's a rainy Tuesday, the golf course is closed, and suddenly the spa is completely overwhelmed with guests wanting treatments. In a traditional hotel, the spa front desk drowns while the bartenders stand around an empty bar.
Doing nothing.
Right. Under this model, that food and beverage host can physically walk over, step behind the spa front desk, and seamlessly support the intake process.
Dang.
They understand the terminology, they understand the ethos of the treatments, they can confidently explain the benefits of the infrared sauna.
The operational flexibility that provides is massive. You don't have to hire as much temporary staff. Your existing workforce becomes fluid. That is the ultimate return on investment for those 12 hours of training.
It pays for itself.
All right, let's look at the final piece of the formal curriculum, Academy 5, Talent Development. This is a 10-hour module delivered virtually and through peer coaching circles aimed exclusively at department heads and supervisors.
The leaders.
Right. The focus is on coaching for performance, how to run highly effective daily shift briefings, and identifying high-potential frontline hosts for succession planning. Why carve out 10 hours just for the managers?
Because if Academy 5 fails, the other 4 academies eventually collapse. Managers are the immune system of the workplace culture.
Immune system, I like that.
You can take a new hire, put them through 34 hours of beautiful, immersive training on wellness, sustainability, and storytelling. They emerge motivated and ready to change the world.
All fired up.
Exactly. They get to the floor, they try to implement a new sustainability practice, and their manager looks at them and says, we don't have time for that, just do it the fast way.
Oh, heartbreaking.
In that single 5-second interaction, the manager has destroyed 34 hours of training. Academy 5 ensures that the leaders actually know how to coach, encourage, and reinforce the new behaviors. They are trained to be cultivators of the ecosystem rather than just taskmasters.
Okay, so we have the foundation built.
Yeah.
The 5 formal academies: Welcome, Wellness, Sustainability, Out of the Ordinary, and Talent Development.
Yeah.
It is a rigorous 44-hour baseline.
It's robust.
But anyone who has ever worked in a complex organization knows that culture isn't just built in a classroom or even in a simulated great hall. The actual lived culture of a workplace is built in the hallways. It's built in the break room. It's built in the hurried conversations during a chaotic shift.
Exactly. Formal academies set the baseline of expectations, but informal learning is where the culture actually breathes and sustains itself.
Right.
The architects of this proposal understand this, which is why they dedicated an entire robust section to what they call informal, social, and blended learning.
And this section is where the collision between the 16th century historical setting and 21st century technology gets incredibly cool.
Yeah, it's wild.
Let's look at how they manage knowledge outside of those formal 44 hours. They champion a concept called social learning. And the standout initiative here is something called legacy lunches.
I love this idea.
Me too. These are structured monthly lunches where the veteran hosts those boomers with 40 years of luxury experience sit down and share stories, case studies, and unwritten rules with the brand new hires.
If we connect this to the bigger picture, to understand why a simple lunch is a strategic initiative, we have to look at the massive corporate problem of tacit knowledge transfer.
Okay, break down tacit knowledge for me.
Knowledge comes in two forms. Explicit knowledge is the stuff you can write down in a manual. The sauna must be set to 80 degrees Celsius. Anyone can read that and execute it.
Right. Easy.
Tacit knowledge is deeply intuitive. It is the wisdom gained only through experience. It's the baker knowing exactly how the dough should feel in their hands on a humid day.
Oh, that's good.
In the Quexigal estate, tacit knowledge is knowing exactly how the winter draft blows through the Great Hall in November and intuitively adjusting the VIP seating arrangements so the guest doesn't get a chill.
You can't write that in a manual. It's purely situational.
Exactly. And the terrifying reality for executives is that when a 30-year veteran retires or leaves, if you haven't intentionally captured that tacit knowledge, it literally walks out the door with them.
Gone forever.
You lose a massive piece of your intangible asset. Legacy lunches create a psychologically safe, structured environment for that informal wisdom to be passed down through the oldest human teaching method available, oral storytelling.
It honors the veterans, giving them status as elders of the tribe, while rapidly accelerating the intuition of the new guard. I love it.
It's very smart.
But then they flip to the complete opposite end of the technological spectrum. To capture the modern workforce, they utilize an internal enterprise WhatsApp group purely for sharing real-time success stories. And they run an internal staff-only Instagram channel dedicated entirely to sharing out-of-the-ordinary moments.
Blending the old and the new.
It is such a wild juxtaposition to me. You have an employee learning a 16th century local legend about the palace gardens from a 60-year-old veteran over lunch, and then turning around and posting a photo of how they use that legend to surprise a guest on a corporate WhatsApp bot.
It's brilliant.
Think about your own workplace for a second. Think about the department you work in. How much vital, indispensable operational information only exists inside the brains of 2 or 3 veteran employees?
Usually a lot.
If they won the lottery tomorrow and quit, how much trouble would your team be in? How are you getting that information out of their heads and into the ecosystem? Quexigal is solving it with free lunches and Instagram.
And they consolidate all of this ephemeral social sharing into a formal knowledge management system. They outline the creation of a centralized SharePoint site branded as the best of Quexigal.
Like an internal wiki.
Yes. It operates as a searchable on-demand brain for the entire property. It houses user-generated video tips, historical local recipes from the kitchen, and troubleshooting guides for the tech in the rooms. If a host encounters a bizarre problem at 2 a.m., they don't have to wait for a manager. They can query the collective intelligence of the estate.
But having a great database doesn't guarantee anyone will actually use it.
Yeah.
A lot of companies have an intranet that is essentially a digital graveyard and nobody ever logs in.
Very true.
This proposal anticipates that, which leads us to their strategy for the transfer of training, making sure what happens in the app or at the lunch actually translates into behavioral changes on the hotel floor.
The hardest part.
I was shocked to read this statistic they cited. In typical corporate environments, up to 80% of training fails to transfer to the job. 80%. That is billions of dollars completely wasted. How does Quexigal prevent that?
They weave a net of accountability around the employee. First, every host is required to keep a personal learning journal. It can be maintained digitally on their device or in a physical notebook. At the end of every week, they must write down specific, actionable transfer goals. Next week, I will implement one new waste reduction technique at my station.
And there is real psychological weight to that. The mere act of physically writing down a goal significantly increases your cognitive commitment to achieving it.
Precisely. But self-accountability often fails, so they add a second layer, the buddy system.
Oh, like peer mentoring.
Every single new hire is paired with a heritage host, a vetted, experienced team member who acts as a peer guide. You are much more likely to ask a stupid question to a peer buddy than to your boss.
Oh, absolutely.
And then the third layer, remember Academy 5 for the managers. Those managers receive 2 hours of highly specific training called coaching for transfer. This means the manager is explicitly trained on how to conduct a post-training interview.
So what does that look like?
They sit down with the employee and ask, I see you completed the wellness module last week. What is one specific thing you are struggling to apply on the floor, and how can I clear the roadblock for you?
So when you combine personal goal setting, peer support, and active managerial coaching, it becomes incredibly difficult for a newly learned skill to simply fade away. The system constantly demands that you use it.
Yeah, exactly.
And to tie all of this continuous learning together and keep it from feeling like a chore, they use gamification. We touched on the badges earlier. They specifically reference implementing a system similar to the PwC digital badges.
Which is a gold standard in the corporate world.
Right. For context, PwC, the massive global accounting firm, is famous in HR circles for their digital badging system. Employees earn these verified digital credentials for mastering new skills, and they display them on their internal profiles, email signatures, and even LinkedIn. Quexigal is doing the exact same thing for hospitality. You can earn the Wellness Whisperer badge for mastering the sleep consultations. You can earn the Zero Waste Hero badge for hitting sustainability targets. You can become a storyteller extraordinaire.
Gamification works because it taps into fundamental behavioral economics. It leverages our deep-seated evolutionary desire to collect resources, display status symbols, and understand our hierarchy within a tribe. It is essentially creating a frequent flyer miles program, but for desirable workplace behavior.
Okay, let's step back and look at what we've built. We have a highly engineered, tech-heavy, psychologically complex ecosystem. We have 44 hours of blended academies, we have legacy lunches, WhatsApp bots, SharePoint databases, digital badges, and a network of peer buddies.
It's massive.
It is a beautiful vision. But here is the cold, hard reality of corporate life. Eventually, the training manager who wrote this proposal has to walk into a boardroom, sit across from the CFO or the ownership group, the people holding the purse strings, and ask for money.
Yes, the moment of truth.
And executives do not care about cultivating reconnection. They don't care about digital badges. You have to prove, with data, that this massive effort makes financial sense. You have to prove it changes behavior in a way that directly impacts the bottom line.
If you cannot prove the ROI, the return on investment, your training department will be viewed as a cost center, and it will be the very first thing cut when budgets get tight. Section 5 of this document is where the training manager proves they are not just an educator, but a sharp business strategist. It outlines the budget, the implementation, and the ruthless evaluation metrics.
Let's talk money. The budget proposed to run this entire ecosystem for the year is 35,000 euros. That breaks down to roughly 15,000 for external certifications, paying the experts to verify the wellness and sustainability science, and 20,000 for the technology stack.
Like the software licenses.
Right. The software licenses for platforms like Docebo for the LMS, Talent LMS, or Articulate Rise for building the modules. And the whole thing is managed by just 2 people, a training manager and 1 assistant coordinator.
It's incredibly efficient.
My initial reaction to that number was shock. 35,000 euros to overhaul the entire culture of a luxury estate. That seems impossibly cheap.
It is remarkably lean. In fact, it is essentially a rounding error in the operational budget of a property like Quexigal.
Yeah.
To understand why this is such a bargain, you have to look at the hidden costs of not training. The hospitality sector is plagued by astronomical turnover rates. When a skilled manager or a high-performing concierge quits because they feel unsupported or unengaged, the cost to the hotel is massive.
So expensive.
You have to spend money recruiting a replacement, you lose productivity during the months it takes to get the new person up to speed, and you risk catastrophic service failures, a botched VIP interaction during the transition.
Which is the worst-case scenario.
The generally accepted metric is that replacing an employee costs between 50% and 150% of their annual salary. If this 35,000 euro training ecosystem retains just 2 key managers who would have otherwise left, the program has literally paid for itself. It is a wildly cheap insurance policy on their human capital.
And they keep the cost that low by utilizing a blended learning approach. The document notes this strategy mirrors about 33% of major U.S. companies. By moving the theoretical knowledge to mobile e-learning and only using in-person hours for physical role-playing, you drastically reduce the need to rent conference space, print thousands of manuals, or pay trainers to lecture for days on end.
Absolutely.
But a low budget only matters if the program actually works. How do they prove to the executives that these modules are changing anything? They use a very famous L&D framework called Kirkpatrick's 4 levels of evaluation. And the way they map this out is a masterclass in data tracking.
It's very thorough.
Let's walk through the levels. Level 1 is reaction. This is the most basic metric. Basically, did the staff hate sitting through the training? They measure this with post-session surveys, often called smile sheets, aiming for a satisfaction score of 4.5 out of 5 or higher.
Level 1 is necessary, but it is dangerously insufficient if used alone.
Right.
It tells you if the trainer was engaging, if the app was easy to use, and if the room was a comfortable temperature. It measures enjoyment. It absolutely does not measure whether anyone retained a single piece of actionable information.
Right. It's like rating a movie. You might have loved it, but that doesn't mean you can direct one.
Great way to put it.
So we move to level 2, learning. Did you actually absorb the knowledge into your brain? They measure this with pre-training and post-training quizzes. For instance, before the wellness module, you take a quiz on sleep cycles. You score a 40%. After the module, you take it again. The target outlined in the proposal is an 85% improvement in scores across the board.
Again, level 2 is helpful, but it can create an illusion of competence. Passing a multiple-choice quiz on an iPad in the break room proves you have short-term recall.
Dear.
It does not guarantee you possess the behavioral capacity or the confidence to execute that skill when a demanding real-life guest is standing 3 feet in front of you, which is why the evaluation must proceed to level 3.
Level 3, behavior.
Hmm.
Are you actually applying the knowledge on the job under pressure? This is where the evaluation gets serious. They don't just ask the employee, are you doing the thing? They use objective observation.
So what are they doing?
They deploy mystery guest evaluations specifically calibrated to look for the emotional hospitality markers taught in the academies. They use peer feedback from the buddy system. The target metric here is aggressive. They want 90% of hosts to actively demonstrate the newly trained behaviors within 4 weeks of completing the module.
Tracking level 3 requires immense operational discipline. You are moving beyond digital quizzes and relying on human observation. If a mystery shopper asks about the origin of the seafood at dinner, does the waiter deliver the local sourcing story exactly as outlined in Academy 3? If they don't, the behavior hasn't changed, and the training failed.
Wow, yeah.
But even level 3, as difficult as it is to achieve, isn't the final destination. The holy grail of learning and development, the only metric that the C-suite truly cares about, is level 4.
Level 4, results. The actual measurable business impact of the training ecosystem. So what does this all mean? Does it make us more money or save us more money?
Right.
The targets they lay out for the executives are intense. They promise a 10% year-over-year increase in guest satisfaction scores, specifically mentioning wellness and sustainability. They promise measurable month-over-month reductions in physical waste and energy consumption. They target keeping the employee turnover rate below 20%, which is phenomenal for hospitality.
That is extremely hard to do.
And crucially, they tie the training directly to revenue generation. They track the upsell of wellness treatments. If that food and beverage host we talked about earlier has a great conversation with a guest about sleep, does that guest walk over to the clinic and book a €200 biohacking treatment? If yes, the training generated direct revenue.
Hitting that level 4 results metric is how a training manager secures their budget for the next decade. You are explicitly linking your mobile app quizzes to RevPAR revenue per available room, the ultimate hotel metric.
RevPR.
You are also linking the training to external sustainability certifications, like the Green Key. Achieving and maintaining a Green Key certification is a massive marketing asset in the modern luxury landscape. It allows you to charge premium rates to eco-conscious travelers. The training program becomes the engine that secures that marketing asset.
And what's brilliant is that they don't just launch the program in January, cross their fingers, and wait until the December annual review to see if they hit these level 4 metrics. They have built a proactive, real-time dashboard powered by what they call pulse surveys.
Oh, the pulse surveys.
I want to explain how this works because it's almost cybernetic. It's a closed-loop system. Every single week, the staff receives a simple 5-question survey pushed to their mobile app. It takes maybe 60 seconds to complete. One of the questions might be, did you use a sustainability tip at your station today?
Okay.
If the system registers that less than 70% of the housekeeping department answered yes, the software automatically triggers. It immediately pushes a targeted 2-minute remediation video specifically about in-room waste segregation directly to the phones of the housekeeping team.
It is the pinnacle of agile management. They are literally tracking whether a microlearning video changes how a housekeeper acts 3 weeks later. And if the data shows the behavior is slipping, the system automatically intervenes to correct it before it impacts the monthly KPI.
Right.
You are not waiting for a disastrous quarterly financial review to realize the sustainability training didn't stick. You know by Friday afternoon, and you have deployed a surgical digital patch by Monday morning.
But let's inject some reality here. A beautiful dashboard is great. A meticulously crafted plan on paper is wonderful. But military strategists have a saying. No plan survives first contact with the enemy. Or in this case, no training plan survives first contact with the chaotic reality of a fully booked luxury hotel.
Definitely not.
Things will go wrong. Technology will crash. People will get exhausted.
Which is why Section 6 of this document is critical. A sophisticated proposal must anticipate its own failure. Section 6 is entirely dedicated to bulletproofing the program through risk mitigation and aligning the ecosystem with broader global forces.
Let's look at the specific risks they identified and the countermeasures they designed. The first massive risk is stagnation. The risk that the training becomes a rigid event. It becomes a stale, boring curriculum in a binder that hasn't been updated in 3 years.
That happens all the time.
Right. Their mitigation strategy is adopting agile design sprints. They commit to reviewing and updating the content every 2 weeks during the first 3 months of the rollout. It reminds me of navigating with a paper map versus using GPS on your phone. A paper curriculum is drawn once, and if a road closes, you're lost. Agile sprints are the GPS. You are constantly monitoring the real-time conditions of the staff and the guests, and you are constantly rerouting and updating the content to find the most efficient path. They are looking for behavioral bugs and patching them every 14 days.
Agile methodology was born in software engineering, but it has become essential in human resources because the macro environment changes too rapidly for static curriculums. If a new wellness trend emerges on social media, the Agile system allows them to build a 5-minute module on it and push it to the staff within a week, keeping the hosts highly relevant to the guests.
Wow.
The second major risk they identify is, as we discussed, the managers. What happens if the direct supervisors simply ignore the training and fail to reinforce it on the floor?
Yeah, their mitigation here is beautifully ruthless. They tie the manager coaching KPIs directly to the manager's own annual performance reviews.
I love this. It's pure accountability. It's the most effective lever you have. If you want a busy department head to care deeply about whether their frontline staff is completing 15-minute digital modules, put it in the manager's appraisal. Make the manager's end-of-year bonus, or their path to a promotion, explicitly dependent on the learning completion rates and behavioral metrics of their team. You instantly align the manager's personal financial priorities with the goals of the L&D department. They will suddenly become the biggest champions of your training app.
That's amazing. The third risk is the technology itself, low digital engagement. What if the staff just silences the notifications and ignores the app? The mitigation is leaning heavily into the gamification we talked about, the leaderboards, the badges, but also strict adherence to the microlearning philosophy. Keeping formats incredibly short, 5 minutes or less. If an employee knows a video will take exactly 120 seconds, they will watch it. If it says 15 minutes, they will close the app. Respect their time, make it slightly competitive, and make it visually engaging.
Very true.
The final internal risk is the eternal threat of budget cuts. An executive sees 35,000 euros and decides they want to save it. The strategy to prevent this: pilot the high-impact academies first. Launch wellness and sustainability for 90 days, measure the level 4 business ROI immediately, and present the data to prove financial value before anyone has a chance to pull the funding.
But the proposal doesn't just look inward at internal hotel risks. It zooms out to address macroeconomic global forces that will shape the workforce over the next decade. We touched on the multi-generational workforce earlier, the friction between Gen Z and boomers. They mitigate this explicitly by designing a blended delivery, utilizing the digital apps that Gen Z natively understands, while elevating the boomers through the peer mentoring of the legacy lunches.
So smart.
They also tackle globalization. They know they are drawing international guests to a deeply local Spanish village, so all materials are deployed simultaneously in English and Spanish, and the curriculum includes specific cultural sensitivity modules to handle the varied expectations of a highly international demographic.
And there's one more external framework they anchor this to, which I had to look up. They tie the entire ecosystem back to the Baldrige criteria.
Ah, yes. The Malcolm Baldrige National Quality Award Framework. It is a massive, incredibly rigorous standard for performance excellence used by top-tier organizations globally.
So what does it actually measure?
The Baldrige criteria essentially asks, are you just getting lucky, or do you have a measurable, repeatable system for excellence? It demands deep integration between leadership, strategic planning, customer focus, and workforce development. By citing Baldrige, the proposal is drawing a bold, undeniable line. It is saying, our emotional hospitality training isn't just about making people smile. It is the specific mechanism by which we fulfill the rigorous customer service quality standards that the Baldrige framework demands.
It proves that the person who authored this proposal isn't just thinking like a teacher in a classroom. They are thinking like a C-suite business strategist. And that leads perfectly into the final section of the document, which outlines the specific qualifications required for the training manager who will actually execute this massive operation. They reference something called the ATD capability model, the Association for Talent Development.
The ATD model defines the modern L&D professional. It breaks it down into 3 necessary capabilities, and it shows why this role is so difficult to hire for. First, personal capability. You need extreme emotional intelligence and elite collaboration skills. You are constantly navigating complex internal politics, soothing bruised egos, and managing wildly diverse personalities in a high-stress environment.
That sounds exhausting.
It is. Second, professional capability. You must possess the hard, technical skills of the trade. You have to know how to execute the ADDI model, how to write an effective instructional rubric, and how to configure the back end of a learning management system.
Right. And the third?
Third, organizational capability. Business insight. The ability to sit across from a CFO, read a P&L statement, and confidently explain how your 15-minute digital badges are going to increase RevPAR and secure a Green Key certification.
Finding someone who has high emotional empathy, technical software skills, and cutthroat business acumen is like hunting for a unicorn. But that trifecta is exactly what is required to elevate a training department from a basic administrative support function into a strategic driver of the company's financial success.
Without that specific combination of skills leading the charge, this brilliant proposal just remains a binder gathering dust on a shelf. But with the right leadership, this continuous, agile, highly measured adaptation is what elevates the Reconnect and Renew program into a living, breathing ecosystem.
Which brings us to the ultimate synthesis of what this document and this entire deep dive is really about. The goal outline here is not merely to have a polite, well-trained staff that knows how to fold a towel or recite a menu. The ultimate goal, as explicitly stated in the conclusion, is to transform the Six Senses Quexigal estate from a static, beautiful physical property into what organizational theorists call a learning organization.
A learning organization is a profound concept. It is an entity that is continuously, organically expanding its capacity to create its own future. It doesn't just react to problems, it anticipates them. It is a living ecosystem that adapts dynamically to real-time guest feedback, instantly integrates new innovations in environmental sustainability, and continuously updates its practices based on the latest physiological science in wellness. It learns, self-corrects, and evolves as a single unified organism.
The document lays out a very clear, immediate call to action for the hiring analysts reviewing the proposal. It gives them the immediate next steps. First, approve a 90-day pilot focusing strictly on the Wellness and Sustainability Academies to prove the concept. Second, immediately allocate the initial €20,000 tech budget to secure the LMS and the authoring tools so development can begin. And third, start scheduling those 30-minute agile design sprints with the department heads to begin iterating the curriculum.
Actionable and decisive.
It is locked, loaded, and ready to launch.
It is, without hyperbole, a masterful blueprint for human capital development. It respects the history of the location, it respects the psychology of the learner, and it respects the financial realities of the business.
And as we wrap up this deep dive, I want to leave you with the powerful concluding line of this entire proposal, because it synthesizes the ethos so perfectly. It says, "We don't train tasks, we cultivate reconnection."
That's a beautiful sentiment.
It is such a beautiful, deeply human framing of corporate labor. And it brings me back to Academy 4, out of the ordinary. We spent a lot of time talking about how they systematize spontaneity, how they use inspiration libraries to empower the staff to create magical, unscripted moments for the guests. I want you, the listener, to think about that concept in the context of your own world right now. Take it out of the luxury hotel.
Yeah, bring it home.
If you were to sit down and create an out-of-the-ordinary curriculum for your own life, for your family, for your friendships, for your daily routine at your own job, what would that actually look like? What would your deliberate sunset rituals be to transition from work to home? What hidden notes could you intentionally leave for the people you care about to surprise them? How could you build your own internal inspiration library to handle the quirky, unpredictable, and often deeply frustrating requests of everyday life with just a little bit more humor and a little more grace?
It's a fascinating and challenging application of the concept, taking the rigorous, highly engineered design of an elite luxury hospitality experience and applying those exact same principles to the micro interactions of our personal lives, systematizing your own spontaneity to improve the experience of the people around you.
Because whether you were standing in the echoing Great Hall of a 16th century Spanish palace, or you were just standing in your own kitchen at 6 a.m. making coffee, The ultimate goal is exactly the same, isn't it? We don't just want to execute the tasks of the day, we want to cultivate reconnection. Thank you so much for joining us for this deep dive into the architecture of learning. We'll see you next time.
Until next time, keep questioning the bigger picture.